Welcome, everybody.
Hi, everybody. We are here in London.
Yes.
Yes, we spent a lot of time in Italy before coming here, and it was a nice change of culture and weather, believe it or not.
Mm.
You know,
It's very sunny and warm
it's very
today.
sunny. It's very deceptive because, usually it's raining like cats and dogs here, but we were lucky with the weather, and we also had a really, really full week because we came here to get ready for
Japan,
a really
a
important
spiritual
journey,
journey to
a
Japan.
spiritual journey to Japan, which is our second. We did it right before, not even right before, but before COVID, we went, and it was so amazing. I have to say, it was so different as well.
Hygienic,
I mean,
polite,
we're going to go into the
caring.
details, but it is from a spiritual point just a place that is not occupied by any kind of religious views, because you can be whatever you want. I mean, you hardly hear ever about um, spiritual terrorist attacks in Japan. It just doesn't exist because they don't care what you believe in. As long as you believe in it, they're fine with it. Um,
They're ethical.
but it's also the idea why we wanted a little bit to you know,
They have rules.
give you a little bit of a a little update where we are at the moment, because you see, we're trying to catch up. This is our Airbnb. We're trying to catch up with our podcast, and of course, we always try to find something that could inspire you, could motivate you, and why journeying is so important. And this, I think, we want to talk a little bit about spiritual journeying, because journeying itself and the idea of journeying is nothing but a spiritual practice in itself. Um, we journey internally in meditation, in astral travel, for those who can and are able to. But also we journey to have a different experience. So of course I don't mean, the Club Mediterranee, eat as much as you can buffet
No,
trips. That's something else. No judgment, if that's your thing,
it's a vacation. Yeah.
have fun. But I think journeying itself is really a willingness to explore and immerse yourself in a complete different, hopefully, culture and nature and language, of course. And there is nothing like Japan. I'm telling you, there's just nothing like Japan, because, first of all, when we went to Japan the first time, we were mesmerized how open people were to what we were doing. So we had the first time around a lot of experiences. And I think when you go the first time to Japan and you don't expect anything and you don't pre Google everything and ruin your expectation, it was quite mesmerizing because, first of all, as you say, Foster, there was no garbage anywhere. People clean, polite, organized. Um, for some, even too much, you see, but it is part of their nature to not want to mm, disturb a structure and a form that is very embedded in their society, basically, right? And we were looking especially about, we were looking into the very unique form of shamanism and spirituality in Japan. And there is a huge variety of it. You just don't hear anything about it because there's not much written about it, but it does exist. And it's something that you have to see there and experience there. And of course, from an energetic point, it's very inspiring to be there. But also, no one speaks English, pretty much. So you have to be really open because no one. Um, um, it's very difficult to communicate when you're a white person. There, we found. Um, and you will be seen a little as strange sometimes, because we have a very different attitude coming from New York. People cross the street whenever they want, but it is a fascinating society, absolutely. And
So I want to talk about something else. When I did my first vision quest in the mountains in New Mexico, We were at 11,000 feet, and I was, alone in my circle. In the Vision Quest, they told me to go to sacred sites around the world, specific sites. And it was very detailed. And I wrote it all down. And then I systematically went to these sacred places. This, in shamanism, is gathering power. You're gathering parts of yourself from all over the world. Maybe you're actually gathering knowledge that's been placed there by other cultures, but you're also gathering yourself from those cultures. You're remembering yourself. You're following yourself. And you're following divinity. And I went to, I think, more than 30 different sacred sites at that time. A lot of them very major sites. And I didn't even have the money to do that. I had no money, so I didn't know how it was going to even happen. But it all came together synchronistically very, very fast after the Vision Quest, and life changed. And in each place, it talked to you, like how the Aborigine talk about song lines, or they talk about following ley lines, or they talk about going from sacred site to sacred site. The places revealed themselves to you. They explained things to you, whether I was in Scotland, in Calanesh, or at that time I got permission to be inside the Great Pyramid, and sleep there, or I got permission to be in Stonehenge for the day. While all the tourists were circling, I was in the center of the stones, or whatever it was. I was communicating with something, and people started to feel that, and they respected it, and they let me do my rituals in these sites. I went to the Temple of Diana, and a white dog came, and the dog kind of showed me where to go in the temple and what to do. And I wasn't alone in any of these places. There were other people there witnessing it. The birds that flew right next to us or sat on your shoulder, whatever happened. There were lots of synchronistic events. The rainbows, I remember in Iona in Scotland, 20, 30 rainbows. Anyway, you're learning how to communicate with the earth. You're learning how to grow down. You're learning how to speak to nature, and and to open up portals as well that we've talked about before, and to be in vortexes. And when we go to Japan, for instance, we are like Shinto priests. They have gates everywhere, hundreds and hundreds of gates. And you walk through all these gates as gateways between this world and the other world. And also in Japan, they work with all the different elements, the Shinto priest. And it's a kind of dance with the elements and with the wind and with the air. And it's quite beautiful to watch. Then they bless you, and they bless a certain object, and you put it, in your home or wherever, or you wear it on your body. And you feel their love of nature and their cultivation of nature, because they're trimming the trees in these Zen temples. They're very meticulous with sand and with stone and with their gardens. And any place that you go to that is sacred, that feels like people are taking care of the earth, that they are incommunicado with the elements, makes you feel at home. And that's something that I truly experience in these sacred sites. I wanted to go to temples. I wanted to go to places all over the world. And that's where I felt most at home. And then I could do my work. That's when all the healing work began. That's when working with people began. And still, I wanted to go to these sacred places with other people, which is what we still do to this day, whether it's Malta or it's, you know, Gozo, or it is, Greece to the temples, or being in Mount Olympus, or being with the Mayans, or being in Mexico and Chichen Itza and all these places. Do you want to say anything? Because we've been to many places together,
Yeah.
and you like to channel in a lot of these places. You like to explore them that way. When we went to Glastonbury, and you understood, you know, that Christ had a great 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 grandson, that's Arthur, and the whole legend of Arthur. And then you also like to meet spirits when we go to places who are dead, who have lived there like in the 14th century or whatever, and they guide us through the
Right.
sacred sites and show
Right.
us where everything is buried
That's what
and the
happens.
secrets.
That's what happens, right?
Do you want to say anything about that?
Well, I think that spiritual journeying is that's what I'm saying. When you're open for the culture and for what made the culture, at the at the core, you will always find some spiritual truth, some metaphysical core that builds society as we know it today. I mean, we can look at cities like like New York or Tokyo or London, and not consider them necessarily spiritual, but if we see what they're built upon, that's what makes them spiritual. You see, you can be in the middle of New York and have a very spiritual experience because it is built on sacred land, first of all. A lot of native Indian land was sacred, was also treated sacredly. It doesn't have to be consecrated in any shape or form. It can be a place that has been seen with respect and with a certain value and respect for nature. That's what makes it as well sacred. When we build a temple or when we build a city or a village or a house on top of it, it does not change the core of what the place represents, which is a which includes a spiritual core of truth or value or connectivity, if you want. And just because a city is overriding with noise, this is the frequency, it doesn't mean that the spirits who are connected to these places for whatever reason, it doesn't mean that they are in the streets of New York, but they are in the streets or in the energy of what used to be there before. So cities and sacred places have something very interdimensional, which means if you tune in, you can be literally in a different dimension with what was there before and pick up on those energies and those spirits who used to exist there in any shape and form. And so it's not difficult for me to see things, to see from people to energies to entities, because they say, we've been here before. We've been here before, we have established ourselves before, and there is what we call the holographic earth, which means that there is always a optimum version of everything in the astral form. And that's why when we pass, when we die and we don't notice it, it's because suddenly we are still in New York, but it's eerily clean and incredibly um, suspecting organized. But it is the um, astral mm, core of what we're building our realities on, and what is reality in the end. It's nothing but what the brain wants to perceive as reality. Mhm.
So, like, you didn't like Sedona very much, and I lived there. And when we first met, we lived in Sedona, and at that point, Sedona was a place where spiritual pilgrims came from all over the world
Mm.
and were making it sacred.
Right.
Not that the place was
Was
sacred,
sacred,
but
exactly.
that they were making it a new pilgrimage
Yes.
area. They loved the stones. They loved to meditate on those stones. They
Yeah.
felt, you know, that upliftment, meditating on a stone. They were connecting to stone people
That's exactly what it
and
is. A
sky.
place is not sacred unless it is connected to evolution, to evolutionary experience.
Like in Santa Fe, there was a time when I moved there, hundreds of healers moved
Exactly.
there. We all were
Because by
exchanging
the
knowledge.
time I met you and we went there, and everybody said you're going to be in a power place of energy, I was more than disappointed because I didn't see any power. There was just nothing extraordinary, like what you feel in Mount Shasta, maybe, or of course the pyramids or Glastonbury, and it was. I thought it's an overhyped place basically with some magnetic qualities, but to say that it's a massive spiritual place, absolutely not. But in general, also a place is not spiritual unless it is occupied by consciousness and built through consciousness and sacred geometry.
And the Indians had always said it was a place for vision quests, not to live there. So I used to bring people on vision quests in Sedona, and snakes would come. All sorts of animals would come to their vision quests. Like Scorpios always got scorpions. It was always quite an amazing moment for them,
Mm.
where they met nature, and they met their fears certainly
Mm.
in the midst of those mesas.
Mm.
But also they survived
Mm.
quite well, and they challenged themselves, and they all had incredible experiences in the end. In a medicine wheel, learning about themselves inside of a circle, in a ritual circle. So Sedona, I think, is the people that combined with the landscape to create something new.
It's what they bring there.
I think Santa Fe had many, many dimensions,
Mm.
and you could tune into whatever dimension you wanted to be in.
Right.
But it was another gathering place But the retreat centers, of course, are in
Well,
Colorado or
many years ago, you
yeah,
brought me to a powwow. It was the very first time I've seen one, and it was in the middle of nowhere. I think it was in a field,
mm,
in a field, and there was nothing spectacular um,
happening.
happening. There was no presence. There was nothing. But the moment these natives gathered and they started to beat the drum and started to dance and started to do their ritual and that's when the whole energy started moving started moving. I mean, again, I want to refer to the concept of schematics. You just need to go on now on social media basically and just type in schematics, and you're going to see phenomenal examples of visual representation of sound on matter. Yeah, that sound creates um, geometric forms basically, and that's exactly what happens um, in rituals, especially when they're connected so much to sound of voice and dance and drumming, especially very elemental sounds. And the whole um, subatomic energy, I want to say, of the area started to form a specific bond with the people. And that's what made it sacred. And the sacredness would last for about 2, 3 months. It would still vibrate, have an after effect, so to speak. So I can't imagine when a place is like a coven, when a coven of witches has their own place repeatedly and go to this place and works with it. I can't imagine
They make a cone of power.
they make a cone of power. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, yeah.
And we know that the Vatican and many, many sites, many cathedrals all over Europe are
Uh,
based on
on sacred, yes.
these goddess
Yeah,
temples
it
where
is.
women gathered
It is
mostly.
definitely a historic thing that what we learned in Europe that a lot of churches were built, especially on pagan places, to make an example out of them. It was of course very misogynistic and very, hateful because that's what religion is in its core. It's
It
all
is.
about hating what doesn't agree with it. And that's why there is a very famous place in France which is called Metz, and they I think in a funny
Churches.
way they have more churches than homes for residents. But again, this is the story of Europe, of course.
Was a
There,
huge
but
pagan gathering place.
massive, absolutely. But also the idea is that we find all these really strong power places in very hidden and remote areas you wouldn't expect to find them because people would not go, in the middle of a marketplace and do their rituals and expose themselves to everything.
Plus,
Mm,
you felt that the sacred place near Sedona was, in fact, in Flagstaff at San Francisco Peaks, which
absolutely.
is where the Kachina
Yeah.
spirits come
The
from.
moment we drove up there,
They come down there.
the
They
moment we
arrive there.
drove towards Flagstaff and driving close to
It's
the
a
mountain,
portal.
I said, there is the real energy. That was the portal. That was where I felt the most exciting um, dimensional shift, I have to say, because you're driving pretty straight, but it feels like you're driving up a hill,
Mm.
you know, and your ears are popping. So, of course, you're getting higher, but it is an eerie feel because you feel like you're almost vertically going up, which to me is always an indication for some UFO
Right.
energy.
Which is
But
Kachinas,
but
yes.
UFOs are nothing but interdimensional portals that are being opened. And of course, also time doesn't exist, so time travel is nonsense. But when we know how to transfer through spaces
Mm.
that are parallel, because everything happens in a parallel way, then we can tune in the easiest. I mean, going to the pyramids, unless you're really just there for the photo option, you cannot go to a place like this and not be in some shape and form moved. When I go to the British Museum because I go there for um, you know other reasons than just sightseeing and seeing an exhibition. You are in a living um, in a living, a life infused history, basically, because these items were all used. And when something is used repeatedly, it tells a story and it vibrates a story. When you have artifacts over artifacts over artifacts in the one building, guess what you have? I mean, this movie, Night at the Museum, is not so off technically because, it comes to life at
It
some
does.
point, but you have to tune in, of course. They're not gonna, a spiritual energy will not dense itself down to our level
Mm.
just to give us a peak of its presence. No one will do this, you
Well,
know.
I worked at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I used to go to the
Mm,
Temple of Dendera
mm,
regularly. And one night, everybody said, well, another one of your colleagues is going to do a ritual there tonight.
mm.
So I snuck back and watched her, and she was a woman, naked, whatever, doing an Egyptian ritual in the Temple of Dendera
Yeah.
after
And these
hours.
are all variations of spiritual journeying. So you don't have to go to some crazy places and sit in the woods and wait for something to happen. You can find this literally in your own city. You know, I lived in Nuremberg in Germany for almost, I mean, way too long. But I lived there, and it is a 1,000-year-old city. Now they know from more excavations that it's older than 1,000 years. And so there is such an important core of history. And it doesn't have to be a purely spiritual one,
Mm.
but even a historic core will be present when a city is built on top of it. We see this with temples in Egypt, with temples in Greece, temples in Rome, where temples are built on top of temples, built on top of temples. And um, the reason is when something was already charged and activated, we're building on top of it just to give it more dynamic. Mm. And so one day, hopefully, we're going to see what's underneath the Sahara Desert,
Mm.
because you know
Amazing.
now there's going to be
An older civilization.
there's going to be
And
an
the Gobi
excavation,
civilization, yes.
absolutely. But and I don't want to say they haven't done it already, but let's say officially it hasn't happened. But there are enough people among us, scientists, researchers, very, um, scientists also very philosophic and very interested in um, in possibilities. They're not just academic what they studied, but open to possibilities. They pretty much discover every day something new that they can't wrap their mind around it. But it has an effect on our collective self. Whatever happens in the world has a collective effect. When we have an experience, it has an effect on the collective. The one doesn't go without the other, and so we are in a perpetual state of desire to evolve, basically. And we're evolving. I mean, technically, I don't recommend it. Technically, you can just sit at home and let it work through you, and you read, you participate. You don't participate, but you read, and you get the news, and then you say, okay, evolution is happening without participating necessarily.
Mm.
I don't recommend it. I want you to participate. Don't be lazy. Um, but that is, I think, what spiritual journeying makes so important. And now we're going to Japan, where again, as I said at the beginning, there's a very modern society, very evolved society. If we see how how brutalist the society was. I mean, pure warriors, basically. The history of Japan
Samurai,
is
samurai.
very
Warrior.
warrior-like. And to see it now to a place, and I don't say they don't have their shadows, I mean, don't get me wrong, but to see how they have evolved to a place of collective agreement is based on their spiritual core of complete acceptance of everyone else.
Yes.
And this is something that is so rare. We were invited to go to Dubai, and then we got a list. Don't sit together, don't sleep together, don't be in one bed, don't get a bedroom, don't
Ridiculous.
do this,
I can't do
then
my
don't
work
touch
like that.
anyone, don't touch anyone, then don't talk to anyone, don't say anything spiritual, don't. I thought, there's no point. There's no point. Of course, I'm not going to go and disrespect somebody's rules. Yeah. But then there is really no point. And then going to Japan was like a breath of fresh air, because they were just so incredibly open to what we were doing.
And then, this John Wick film, they, even though it takes place in
We saw
France,
John Wick 4 yesterday. That's
yeah,
why he's mentioning it. Yeah.
and you're in Osaka, Japan in the film, which is where we're going on
Right.
Sunday. And in that moment in the film, you see the cherry blossoms, you see these warriors. The whole film is just fighting, fighting, fighting. But at the very end, you see that it's about the actual theme of the tree, the cherry blossoms, that life is impermanent,
Right.
that it will only bloom for that short time,
For that short time.
and then it will pass like a warrior,
Right.
and that this is the nature of life.
Right.
And that was also kind of the nature of the film.
Mm.
That life here can be a battle if you are only in survival mode.
it was very metaphoric in the end because it represents, I mean, it's very violent. It's
Very.
really, it's 5 pages of dialogue, and the rest is, I have to admit, amazingly choreographed scenes of violence. But it's not so far away from what's happening right now because I think these kind of movies also represent the journey of the human mind, where with Pluto shifting now into Aquarius, not forever, but at least for this year, it's going to go back and forth into Capricorn. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see a huge breakthrough of Pluto journeying into a new sign, and by that, bringing us into a complete society change. It's going to be inevitable. There is always the concept of the first, second, and third wave, and we are the second wave of people who came to connect first and third, and the
To bring
third
hope,
wave,
to bring light to this world.
and the
Yeah.
third wave are these kids who are basically um, don't want to be told anything and are coming to change whatever can be changed. I mean, that's what it is.
Well, look, today I was talking to a Muslim about Ramadan, and they were explaining it to me. But then it got into the whole idea of spirits and jinn and demons, and they were saying, of course, negative things about demons and jinns, and that, Ramadan will protect us from all of that. And I just didn't say anything. I didn't want to go into it. But the realization for me is I spend all my life with spirits. Like
Right.
I love animals, I also have a great respect for spirits. And I like to enter different worlds here. I
Mm,
like to meet jinn. They don't demand all these things that they're told them in Islam.
mm,
He was telling me, well, that if you meet a jinn, they will start demanding all these things from you and they will treat you badly, whatever, because you don't get power for nothing and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought to myself, wow, what an old idea.
mm,
Who has taught you this? This is old dogma.
mm.
And I didn't want to tell him, but I've had experience with jinns. I build the whole thing. And no, there they were. And it was like I don't know, like
Well,
an intercultural idea kind of.
that's
I'm
what it
visiting
is.
their world. I'm learning
You're
about them.
journeying,
Yeah.
you're journeying to them, exactly.
Same with
And you're
fairies.
and you're
The fairy
giving
world.
them a peek into our world.
Yes.
And so journeying and spiritual journeying is really fundamental on all levels, physical and non-physical. Even your guide, being with you is his journey, something that he didn't even, or she doesn't even need to do,
Yes.
but is journeying with you through these incarnations. That is part of the package, you see. And like birds migrate, and like bears go into hibernation just to wake up in the spring, same idea. Everything travels, everything moves, everything is in perpetual movement, um, expanding and returning to
And
its
if you
core.
go on a journey and you hear negative things or whatever, you're from spirits or whatever in your mind, that's not real. That's not the spiritual world. They would not say anything negative. They would not do
No,
those
the
things.
spiritual
That's
doesn't care about
humanity.
negativity. That
Yeah.
is the human mind. But again, I think that people who have been, and I use the term indoctrinated
Very much.
by rules and have been told follow the rules and nothing will happen to you, is a great deal of giving away power.
Only.
You see, and when you question it, um,
When you're gaining power, they feel they have to
you know,
protect you from that.
right,
Like it's a bad thing.
you know, it is the idea, the the misguided idea that we should not have that kind of power.
Exactly.
No, but if you read in scripture, it's all about reaching the level to have the power that the divine gives you, and no
The
matter in
hero's
what,
journey, yeah.
I mean, what is it now? What is it now? Which one is it? Take the food or not eat the food? I mean, damn if you order it, and damn if you eat it, and if you don't eat it. You know, it is so contradictory in the end. And the idea is, we're dealing also with physical life, and physical life from birth to death is a journey.
Yes.
It is a journey. Um, I met people who never even left their village.
Mm.
They stayed in one place, but they felt like they traveled every opportunity they wanted to experience, and the need was not, and I asked them, were you never tempted to go to a different country or take a plane
Mm.
or anything? They said, no, everything I needed, I found it here. And that is also a very tight form of journey. And then, of course, we have people like me who basically give up their life and go somewhere else for the hope of a better life. And that is also based on a spiritual desire. Yeah. Everything is based on spiritual desire, desire to get better, desire to move, desire to make money, desire to be healthy, desire to grow and to enlightened. Everything is based on desire. Desire
Moves the
cannot,
world.
but desire cannot move anything without power. And we're back to that idea, you see. And so I think when I see it, on our clients, and also the clients I used to have for a decade before I met Foster, it was always about where can I go to recharge, to get inspired, to get motivated. And, as often as I said, you can do this at home in your living room. I said, no, I need to go somewhere. So I found people moving, actually not even traveling, but moving to Bali. They went to ashrams. They
Costa
went
Rica
to
and all
Costa
of
Rica. They went to the
Mexico.
Bermuda, Mexico. And you would wonder, why would you give up your life here with all the comfort sometimes to go to a place that just doesn't offer it? Because there is something that nurtures the soul, nurtures the cell memory, or nurtures past lives, or nurtures the karmic contract even. Even that can happen. Certain places can have a almost balm-like, um, healing cream-like effect on your contract.
Or like going to Glastonbury and just sleeping there. Remember, there were so many levels to Glastonbury. Do I want to work on an elemental level of
Mm,
elves and fairies and all these
mm.
beings? They, it says fairy path. You're crossing the fairy path there,
Right, right,
but
right,
it really is quite real.
right.
It's very alive there. You have lots of mounds that are quite large.
Mm,
That you know that there are other kingdoms, and there are people who have entered
yeah,
whatever fairy kingdoms there,
yeah,
like in Mount Shasta.
same.
There is the underground city called Telos, and all these people come in and out of Telos,
Mm.
and they tell you. And there's also we
But what
talked
does
about.
it mean in and out? It doesn't mean they're coming out through a door and they lock the door like we do. They're coming through a dimensional shift.
Yes.
They're aware that we are in a parallel existence. And because of that awareness, the shifting is not something they question, it's something they experience. And when we experience something, we
Amazing.
lose fear of it. We lose fear of it. We lose, um, you know, any negative emotion around it,
Yes,
basically. You know,
absolutely.
um, the first time flying, I remember, my God, it was a weird feeling. I was ready to die. It was a short flight to Paris, but I thought, okay, that is not normal. It's not normal to sit in a plane and go through the air. But after the 50,000th flight that we have on Monday another, no, on Monday, right?
Sunday.
Sunday, we have a 15-hour flight, 16-hour flight ahead of us. All I think is how I can get my melatonin, sleep long enough. I don't want to be bothered. There is no time to think about what could happen, because if it happens, it happens. But it is this incorporating and adjusting and making peace with an experience that we take absolutely for granted and is a part of our normality. And that is not much different to experiencing a dimensional shift, dimensioning a spiritual journey, and the effect it can have on your psyche.
It is funny how people have that fear, though, that they're falling asleep on a plane,
Mm,
that they're not in control because they are not the pilot. So they go through their control
right?
issues, that they have to sit on a plane somebody else controls.
Yeah.
And the other idea of, what if I fall asleep on a plane and I wake up and I'm actually dead,
Mm,
and I don't know that I'm dead?
mm. That is annoying, I have to say. That can be annoying.
People have that fear irrationally.
Absolutely, I mean, I would want that. And I went through an experience like that where I
Yes.
didn't know if I was here or not.
Right.
But I tell you, it is difficult to distinguish, you know. Nevertheless, we wanted to give you a little hello. It's half an hour, and we don't want to torture you because we heard it's too long, you know.
Can we say one more thing about the plane?
Yeah.
I would put a 5-pointed star over the
Uh,
plane.
always. I
Always.
put five-pointed stars over the plane, 6 prayers, 17 angels. I mean, don't get me
The
wrong.
vanishing
Before that
pentagram.
plane takes off, I have bombarded it like Fort Knox. Okay, because when we go up there, these air elements,
Oh,
they
yeah, they
should
like to
know I'm
bump us.
I'm sitting here, and you take your fingers off my aircraft.
Oh, we do a lot of
A
5-pointed stars
lot.
for them.
Yes.
And we talk to those air spirits
You
and say,
know.
there are some other people here.
Yeah.
There are real magicians, a real shaman on this plane. You
You know.
better not fuck with them.
And so far
No,
it
they
was
don't do
good.
that.
We have good
But
flights
when
so
I'm
far,
not with you, you often go very much up and down in your plane.
because that's my life. That is my life, up and down.
But I
Welcome to
always
my car
remember the
now.
Argentinians in the plane. It was going up and down, and they were still eating like nothing was
Nothing
happening.
else happening.
They're,
Yeah, they can't be bothered. They're really rough
I loved
people.
it. I loved it
They
though.
know how to take it. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Then put a 5-pointed star, starting at the bottom, in the back of the plane, the bottom left-hand corner going up all the way to the front, back to the right bottom of the plane, to the middle wing, over to the right wing, and back again where you started in the left.
that's how you do it.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it. The whole plane is in the 5-pointed star. Then you make the circles around the
I
plane.
put 5-pointed stars, front, left, back, and right, up and down, and then I let the corners connect like a box.
Well, that's what we do in a row.
And then I do a hexagram, left, back, front, and right, up and down, and put it in a second box. Then I put 2 circles around it, give my command, and then I enjoy my complimentary little peanut bag.
Michael to my right, Uriel to my left, Raphael in front of me, Gabriel behind me in the circle around the plane. And much, much more. We do a Kabbalistic
You can do
cross
whatever you
on
want,
the plane.
you can do whatever you want. But it is important to infuse the energy of the craft, the plane, the ship, the boat, the bike, the car. It doesn't matter. You should do a little bit of a blessing
Yes.
around items of control, because a blessing empowers.
Yes.
That's what blessings are. I bless you, I empower you. That's the idea. So it costs you nothing. It takes 2 minutes, and yeah, you have peace of mind.
We used to do the sword banishing ritual of the angels also on an airplane.
Yeah.
And we used to do it. We had the list, and we would
Well,
invoke those angels.
the thing is also not to wait until you're on the plane and realize something's off.
Right.
We do this all also before. We have our own rituals and our own set of tools that at least that I use. And it did happen rarely, but it did happen that the plane didn't even take off, or
6
we
hours,
or we had to cancel, or we got canceled, or we had to fly the next day. And I don't mind anymore, because I take it as a sign this would not have been a appropriate flight for what matter. It doesn't, for whatever reason.
To avoid the chaos.
Right.
Also, before we land or before we leave another place too, I always thank the spirits. Like we left Warsaw, Poland. So I talked to the spirits in Poland and said, we're leaving now, but I want to thank you. And if we should return, do we have permission to do our work there?
Right.
And the same thing when we came to England. Do I have permission to do work here? Right. I asked the spirits first. Like in Italy, they're very different spirits.
People ask always how it comes that we are always sold out, because by the time people want to book something, it's already sold out for next year. And I tell them it is that we prepare ourselves, we ask for permissions, we introduce ourselves to the places and say, can we come? Can we come? And if we cannot come, I would like to have an exchange. And that's exactly what happened now.
I was given an offering, like tobacco, or I put seeds or something.
Or a glass of water, or a little song that you sing in your head. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to go to Japan, I have to say, because I liked it so much last time. I actually I looked at real estate, at night on Google, because I liked it so much. It was such a society I completely resonate, because I like discipline. I'm very structured. I'm very organized.
I also loved our guide, because she was Japan for us.
Our guide
so
made it
full of grace.
She has no idea. Harumi was
Japan.
She's again our tour guide. She is just exquisite.
Embodiment of their ideals.
Exquisite, and the way she guided us and also showed us and introduced us to what she knew as spiritual concepts was really wonderful. We had just an amazing, amazing time. And I know we're going to have an amazing time now, with Pluto in full sway. And guys, also June 21st, Mercury goes into retrograde.
And today is the full moon.
Today's the full moon.
Also, Easter is coming this weekend.
But get ready for the retrograde period. It's going to be quite, quite difficult, I think, this time, because it does last until, I think, first week of May, but it has quite an effect until about 10th or 11th of June. So in that time, you might want to avoid um, taking trips. You know,
But
we can't avoid it, but
now with
um,
Shivaratri, and you have, Easter, and you have Ramadan, and
Ramadan.
everything
So
coming,
it's amazing.
you feel it all.
You feel that
Something's opening
yes,
now.
what you feel is that no matter the denomination, the faith, the belief, that people are praying for peace. They're praying for love. They're praying for the divine.
Clarity.
The clarity, for a common sense as well. And these are the moments when I always hope that something miraculous will happen, and some heroes will show up in this new generation and transform it.
To resurrect their
And
spirits.
we have also to know when we have to make room and step back a little bit to give them the space to
Blossom.
blossom. Absolutely. And so
Spring.
this is what spiritual journeying is basically. Um, it's really looking at a place and visiting a place and allowing the place to visit you as well. You know, because it's almost like you're introducing yourself to a person who says, I have no idea who you are and where you come from. Let me have a look. Let me journey with you.
Like when I first went to Bali,
Mm.
and we arrived in that room and the artwork and everything. I said, I would like to meet the artist who made this bed, who made this artwork here. And so she came the next day to meet me. And I said, did you paint this? Did you do this? She said, yes. Can you do something for me? She looked at me. She says, yes, I'm going to paint heaven for you. So that, every day you can see yourself ascending. That's what she said.
Mm.
And I thought, that's Bali. That's the
Right.
perfection of the water, of the elements,
Right.
of the temples, of the different tiers, of the different levels of spirit, all the different bodies, how they represent it,
Yeah.
and how lush, how much the communities there, how close they are, how beautiful it was, full of art, full of creativity. That I never forgot. Every town makes a different thing, a
Mm.
different sculpture.
Absolutely.
It stays with you forever. Every
I
event.
think a journey is spiritual when it stays with you until the day you die. You remember back and you remember the feeling that it had for you. I think that's when it has a spirit um, fulfilling effect. Yeah. Guys, we're going to let you go now because we have to go.
We're going to Japan.
We're going to Japan. We're going to take you with us, and I'm going to see how much I can and want to videotape. So, and of course, I don't know how internet is going to be, but crossing your fingers, everything will go well. We're going to have an amazing journey. I already programmed it. I know it will happen.
And when you
And
travel, all the complaining will come up. Everything will come up
oh yeah,
that could go wrong. Then you pass that phase.
yeah,
Then comes the real journey.
right,
That's gratitude.
right, absolutely.
You're one
And
with the
now,
place.
let's not forget, I would be really grateful if you could like, share, and subscribe. Like, share,
To our
and subscribe
podcast.
to our podcast. Um, it's our baby that we're trying to keep alive as much as we can. I thought it would be so easy, but it is actually a lot of work, technical work. And I think a lot of podcasters know exactly what we talk about. We're still very primitive, as you see. It's us with a little microphone and a little camera. But, that's our life. Simple. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in
Thank you.
for the shortest ever
Podcast.
podcast we had. Next time we're gonna drag you
coming soon.
more along. Don't worry.
Okay, part
So
2.
take
Next time.
good care of yourselves, and we're gonna see you again when we are in Japan. Many
See you
blessings
soon.
until we see you again. Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.